I never thought I'd see my mother, the woman who used to bake cookies for the neighborhood kids, gleefully feeding my business documents into our family room fireplace. But there she was, her normally perfectly styled gray hair wild around her face, her eyes blazing with an almost manic intensity as she watched my hard work turn to ash. I'm Jessica Chen, 32, founder and CEO of TechGrow Solutions, a digital marketing agency I built from scratch in my tiny studio apartment 4 years ago. Today, it's worth over $270,000 and growing. But my parents don't see a successful business. They see their retirement plan, their ticket to the lifestyle they think they deserve. You're making a huge mistake, Jessica, Dad said, his grip tight on my arm as he held me back from the fireplace. We're your parents. We gave you everything. Now it's time to pay us back. I watched another folder of contracts disappear into the flames, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Those are just copies, I said, keeping my tone calm despite the rage building inside me. Everything's digital now. You're just wasting paper. Mom whirled around, her face flushed. Don't you dare take that tone with us. After everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me. I almost laughed. The memories came flooding back, me at 16, working 2 part-time jobs because they'd spent my college fund on a timeshare in Florida. Me at 21, taking out massive student loans because they'd convinced me get help with tuition, only to discover they'd opened credit cards in my name instead. Me at 25, sleeping on a friend's couch after a bad breakup because they'd said I couldn't move back home unless I paid them $1,000 a month in rent. You're right, I said, my voice ice cold. Let's talk about everything you've done for me. Dad's grip loosened slightly, surprise flickering across his face. He probably expected me to break down, to give in like I always had before. But I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. Jessica, he started, using his reasonable voice, the one he used when explaining why they needed to borrow my first car for my brother Michael. We're not asking for much. Just make us partners in your business. 50-50. We deserve that much. 50-50, I repeated. You want half of the business I built while you told me I was wasting my time. While you called my dreams foolish fantasies and told everyone I was having a quarter-life crisis. Mom stopped feeding papers into the fire long enough to point an accusing finger at me. We were trying to protect you. And look, we were right. You're successful now. That means you were ready. We made you stronger. The absurdity of her logic would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. I took a deep breath, remembering what my therapist had said about staying centered in confrontations. No, Mom, you didn't make me stronger. You made me doubt myself. Every success I've had has been despite you, not because of you. How dare you, she shrieked, grabbing another handful of papers. After we sacrificed everything. Sacrificed? I cut her off, finally pulling free from Dad's grip. Let's talk about sacrifices. Let's talk about how you maxed out the credit cards you opened in my name. How about we discuss the $40,000 in debt I had to pay off before I could even start my business? Dad's face reddened. That was a misunderstanding. No, I said firmly, it was fraud, just like the fake investment scheme you tried to rope my clients into last year. The one I had to spend thousands in legal fees to protect them from. Mom dropped the papers she was holding, her face suddenly pale. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I do. I pulled out my phone, bringing up the email I'd received that morning. The SEC is very interested in talking about what I know. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crackling of the fire seemed muted as my parents stared at me, their faces a mix of shock and growing fear. You wouldn't, Dad whispered. We're family. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't try to sabotage each other's success. Family doesn't show up at their daughter's office demanding access to her accounts and threatening to tell her clients lies when she refuses. The day they'd shown up at my office still made me cringe. My biggest client had been in the middle of a meeting with me when my parents barged in, shouting about their rights to my company and how I was stealing their retirement. It had taken weeks to repair that relationship, and I'd lost 2 smaller clients in the aftermath. We just want what's best for the family, Mom said, but her voice was weaker now, the maniac gleam in her eyes replaced by uncertainty. No, you want what's best for you. You always have. I walked over to the fireplace, looking down at the scattered papers they hadn't burned yet. You know what's funny? These documents you're burning, they're from the investigation I launched 6 months ago. Into your Caribbean accounts, your fake charities, your investment scams. Dad took a step toward me, his hands shaking. You're bluffing. I pulled up another email on my phone, turning it so they could see the FBI header. Am I? Because Special Agent Torres would disagree. He's very interested in how you convinced Aunt Sarah to invest her entire retirement fund in your foolproof real estate venture. That was a legitimate business opportunity, Dad protested, but I could see the sweat beading on his forehead. Really? Is that why you transferred the money to an account in the Cayman Islands the next day? Is that why Aunt Sarah had to move in with her daughter because she couldn't afford her medical bills? Mom sank onto the couch, her face ashen. We were going to pay her back. Like you were going to pay back the money you stole from me? Or the money you borrowed from Uncle Pete? Or the college fund you emptied that was meant for Michael's kids? The mention of my brother seemed to spark something in Mom. She jumped up, pointing at me accusingly. Michael would never betray us like this. He understands family loyalty. Michael, I said quietly, is the one who came to me with proof of your scams. He's the one who showed me the documents proving you'd stolen his children's future. He's the one who begged me to help stop you before you ruined more lives. That revelation hit them like a physical blow. Dad staggered back, collapsing into his armchair. Mom's legs seemed to give out, and she slid back onto the couch. You're lying, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. I walked to the entryway where I'd dropped my bag earlier, pulling out a thick manila envelope. These are copies of everything. Bank statements, transfer records, emails discussing your schemes. The originals are safe with my lawyer, and digital copies have already been sent to the relevant authorities. Why? Dad's voice was barely audible. Why would you do this to us? I'm not doing anything to you, I replied, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to choke me. You did this to yourselves. And more importantly, you did this to everyone who trusted you, your family, your friends, people who believed in you. I placed the envelope on the coffee table between us. The authorities will be contacting you soon. I suggest you get a good lawyer, and if you ever come to my office again, if you ever threaten me or my business again, I won't hesitate to tell them everything else I know. Mom began to cry, loud theatrical sobs that had always worked to manipulate me before. Dad just sat there, staring at nothing, looking suddenly old and defeated. As I turned to leave, Dad's voice stopped me. We're still your parents, he said, a hint of his old authority creeping back in. You owe us that much. I paused at the door, looking back at them one last time. No, I don't owe you anything. Not anymore. You taught me one valuable lesson, though sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones you need to protect yourself from. The door closed behind me with a quiet click, but it felt as final as a slam. As I walked to my car, I could still see the glow of the fire through the living room window, still burning with the remnants of the papers they thought would give them leverage over me. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Did you do it? Yes, I typed back. It's done. Call me later. Will do. Stay strong, sis. We did the right thing. As I drove away from the house I'd grown up in, I felt a complex mix of emotions, grief for the parents I wish I'd had, relief that it was finally over, and a strange, surprising sense of peace. The truth was out now, and with it the power they held over me for so long was gone. I had built my business from nothing, fighting against their disapproval and sabotage every step of the way. Now it was time to build something else. A life free from their manipulation and lies. It wouldn't be easy, but then again, nothing worth having ever is. My phone buzzed again. A reminder about tomorrow morning's client meeting. Life would go on. Business would continue to grow. And this time, I'd face it all without the weight of toxic family obligations holding me back. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't holding on. It's letting go. The week after the confrontation was eerily quiet. No frantic calls from Mom, no guilt-tripping texts from Dad, no flying monkeys sent to make me see reason. The silence should have been peaceful, but instead it felt like the calm before a storm. I threw myself into work, focusing on growing Techro solutions. My team had landed 3 new major clients, and I was in the middle of reviewing their onboarding documents when my office door burst open. Ms. Chen, my assistant Kate's face was pale. Your brother Michael is here. He says it's urgent. Before I could respond, Michael rushed past her, looking disheveled in his usually pristine business suit. His face was ashen, his tie loosened, never a good sign for my normally perfectly put-together brother. "They're gone," he said without preamble, collapsing into one of my client chairs. "What do you mean gone?" I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what he meant. "Mom and Dad. They've disappeared. The house is empty, their phones are disconnected, and their bank accounts have been cleared out." He ran a hand through his hair, messing it up further. "They even took their passports from the safe deposit box." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the information sink in. Of course they'd run. It was their pattern. When things got tough, when their schemes were about to be exposed, they'd disappear and reinvent themselves somewhere else. They'd done it 3 times during our childhood, always presenting it as an exciting new opportunity for the family. "Have you called the FBI?" I asked, already reaching for my phone. Michael nodded. "Agent Torres is on it," but he trailed off, looking at me with guilt in his eyes. "Jess, they didn't just take their money. They somehow accessed Aunt Sarah's remaining accounts, and they emptied the trust fund for my kids." The anger that surged through me was white hot. "How much?" "Almost $180,000. His voice cracked. "Everything we'd saved for the twins' college. Sophie's medical fund. All of it." I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. 4 years ago, I'd stood in the same spot, dreaming of building something meaningful. Now I had to watch my parents destroy everything they touched again. "We'll fix this," I said firmly, turning back to Michael. "I promise you, Michael, your kids won't suffer for their crimes." He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Jess, no. I didn't come here to ask for money." "I know you didn't." I sat on the edge of my desk. "But I'm offering. Techro is doing well, and I've been saving to expand. The kids' education is more important. I can't accept." "You can, and you will." I cut him off. "Consider it an investment in my niece and nephew's future. Besides," I managed a small smile, "someone needs to break the family pattern of financial disaster." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "When did my little sister get so wise?" "Probably around the time I had to learn that our parents were con artists instead of actual parents." The intercom buzzed and Kate's voice came through. "Ms. Chen, Agent Torres is on line 1. He says it's urgent." I picked up the phone, putting it on speaker. "Agent Torres, you're on with both me and Michael." "Ms. Chen, Mr. Chen." The agent's deep voice filled the office. "We've tracked your parents' movements. They boarded a flight to the Cayman Islands yesterday morning, but they never made it to their final destination." Michael and I exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" "They had a connecting flight in Miami. Airport surveillance shows them leaving the airport instead of boarding their next flight. We believe they're still in Florida." "Of course. Florida, where they still own that timeshare they'd bought with my college fund." "The timeshare in Naples," Michael said, clearly thinking the same thing. "But surely they wouldn't be that obvious." "Actually, they might," I said slowly. "Remember how Dad always said the best place to hide is in plain sight? Plus, they've been paying maintenance fees on that place for years. It's probably one of the few assets that isn't frozen yet." Agent Torres's voice crackled through the speaker. "We're sending agents to check it out. In the meantime, we need you both to be careful. Your parents have shown they're desperate, and desperate people can be dangerous." After ending the call, Michael and I sat in silence for a moment, processing everything. Finally, he spoke up. "Remember when we were kids, and Mom used to tell us those stories about her wealthy childhood in Europe? How she grew up in a castle and had servants." I nodded. "And then we found out she'd actually grown up in a small apartment in New Jersey, and the photos she showed us were from magazines." I spent years believing those stories, years thinking we were somehow special, different from other families. He shook his head. "Even after I knew the truth, part of me wanted to keep believing." "That's what made them such good con artists," I said quietly. "They made everyone want to believe, even their own children." My phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number, but I recognized Mom's writing style immediately. "Darling, we're so disappointed in you, but it's not too late to fix this. Wire $500,000 to the attached account and we'll forget this unfortunate incident. Otherwise, your clients might learn some interesting things about how you really got your start. Love, Mom and Dad." I showed the text to Michael, who let out a bitter laugh. "They really don't learn, do they?" "No, they don't." I forwarded the text to Agent Torres, then turned to my computer. But maybe we can use that to our advantage. What are you thinking? I pulled up my banking software. They want money. Let's give them money. Or at least, let's make them think we're giving them money. Understanding dawned on Michael's face. A trap. Exactly. I picked up my phone to call Agent Torres back. They taught us everything we know about con games. Time to put those lessons to use. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Agent Torres arrived with his team, setting up surveillance equipment in my office. Tech experts traced the account number my parents had sent, linking it to a small bank in the Caribbean. The transfer has to look legitimate, Agent Torres explained. Your parents are experienced enough to spot obvious traps. I nodded, thinking about all the times I'd watched them work their schemes. They'll be monitoring the account closely. They'll want to move the money as soon as it hits, which is exactly what we're counting on, the agent said. The moment they tried to access the funds, we'll have their location. Michael, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly spoke up. What if we could get them to come to us instead? All eyes turned to him. They're greedy, he continued. They always want more than what's offered. What if we send them a smaller amount first? Say, $100,000. Enough to convince them we're giving in, but not enough to satisfy them. A slow smile spread across my face. And then we tell them they can have the rest in person. They won't be able to resist the chance to manipulate us face to face. Agent Torres considered this for a moment. It's risky. Your parents might get suspicious. No, I said firmly. Michael's right. They'll believe it because it's exactly what they expect from us. They've spent years conditioning us to give in to their demands. They'll think it's finally working again. The agent nodded slowly. Okay, let's set it up. But I want you both to understand, once we start this, there's no going back. Are you prepared for what might happen? Michael and I looked at each other, years of shared trauma and survival reflected in our eyes. Then we both nodded. Yes, I said, turning back to Agent Torres. It's time to end this, once and for all. The hotel conference room felt sterile and tense. Agent Torres' team had transformed it into a command center, with monitors displaying surveillance feeds from every angle of the hotel lobby and restaurant. Michael and I sat at the central table, watching the screens while technicians made final adjustments to our hidden microphones. They've accessed the money, one of the agents announced, looking up from his laptop. Just as we predicted, they're trying to transfer it to another account. I checked my phone. Right on schedule, a new message from Mom appeared. Darling, it's a start, but you know this isn't enough. We raised you better than to be so stingy. Meet us tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Grand Plaza Hotel restaurant. Bring proof that you can transfer the remaining amount. We'll forgive you if you cooperate. Michael read the message over my shoulder and snorted. Forgive us? The audacity never stops, does it? Ms. Chen. Agent Torres approached, his face serious. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? We could arrest them as soon as they enter the hotel. I shook my head. No, I need them to admit what they've done. All of it, not just for the FBI's case, but for me, for all of us they've hurt. The agent nodded, understanding. Remember your training. Don't let them control the conversation. Stay calm, no matter what they say. And most importantly, keep them talking until we give the signal. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mom's face as she fed my documents into the fire, Dad's grip on my arm, the countless times they'd manipulated and gaslit me throughout my life. By morning, my determination had hardened into steel. The hotel restaurant was elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Michael and I arrived early, choosing a table that gave the FBI's surveillance cameras clear sightlines. I wore a navy business suit, power clothing for what would be the most important meeting of my life. At exactly 2 p.m., they walked in. Mom looked immaculate as always, her designer dress and perfectly styled hair a stark contrast to her actions last week. Dad wore his business meeting face, the one he used to charm countless victims out of their savings. Darling, Mom called out, moving to hug me as if nothing had happened. I stepped back, keeping the table between us. Sit down, I said coldly. Let's get this over with. Their smiles faltered slightly, but they took their seats. A waiter appeared with menus, but Dad waved him away. We're here to discuss family business, he said, using his authoritative voice. Now, Jessica and Michael, we're very disappointed in how you've both behaved. Disappointed. Michael's laugh was harsh. That's rich, coming from the people who stole my children's future. Mom reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled away. Sweetheart, you're overreacting. Everything we've done has been for the family. You'll understand when you're older. I understand perfectly, I replied, opening my laptop. I understand that you've spent decades running cons. I understand that you've stolen from everyone who ever trusted you. And I understand exactly how many years in federal prison fraud and embezzlement carry. Dad's face darkened. Watch your tone, young lady. We're still your parents. No, I said firmly. You're criminals who happen to give birth to us. There's a difference. How dare you? Mom's voice rose, drawing looks from nearby tables. After everything we've sacrificed. Sacrificed? Michael cut in. Like sacrificing my kids' college fund? Or sacrificing Aunt Sarah's retirement? Tell me, Mom, what exactly have you sacrificed? You ungrateful. Dad started, but I interrupted him. Let's talk about gratitude. I pulled out a folder. Let's talk about the $287,000 you stole from Aunt Sarah, or the $180,000 you took from Michael's children. Or maybe we should discuss the other families you've conned over the years. Mom's face went pale. Those were legitimate business ventures that didn't work out. Really? I opened the folder, spreading out documents, because these bank records show the money going directly into your personal accounts you've been emptied before running away. We can explain everything, Dad said smoothly, slipping into his sales pitch voice. There's been a misunderstanding. If you'll just transfer the rest of the money we discussed, we can sort this all out as a family. I pulled up my banking app. You mean this transfer? Their eyes locked onto my screen, greed evident in their expressions. The moment felt surreal, my own parents salivating over the chance to steal more money from their children. Yes, darling, Mom said, her voice honey-sweet. Just think of it as an investment in our family's future. Funny you should mention the future. I turned the laptop to face them, because I've been thinking a lot about futures lately, about all the futures you've stolen. The screen didn't show a bank transfer. Instead, it displayed a series of photos. Aunt Sarah moving into her daughter's cramped apartment, Michael's twins at their birthday party, the office where I'd built my business from nothing. What is this? Dad demanded, his mask of control slipping. This is reality, I said quietly. These are the lives you've destroyed, the trust you've broken, the futures you've stolen. We don't have time for this nonsense, Mom snapped. Either transfer the money or what? Michael asked. You'll steal more from us? Run away again? Destroy more lives? Dad stood up abruptly. We're done here. Come on, Linda. Actually, I said, as FBI agents began moving into position around the restaurant, we're just getting started. Mom's face contorted with rage as she realized what was happening. You set us up, your own parents. Yes, I met her eyes steadily. Just like you set up every person who ever trusted you. The difference is, I'm doing this to protect people. You did it out of greed. Agent Torres, I called out, and the FBI team moved in, surrounding our table. Robert and Linda Chen, Torres announced, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and financial exploitation. As the agents led them away, Mom turned back, her face a mask of fury. You'll regret this. We're the only ones who ever truly loved you. I stood up, my voice carrying across the now silent restaurant. No, Mom, you never loved us. You only loved what you could take from us. And that stops today. Michael put his arm around my shoulders as we watched our parents being escorted out in handcuffs. You okay? He asked softly. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. Yeah, I think I finally am. Agent Torres approached us, notepad in hand. We'll need you both to come down to the office to make formal statements. But I want you to know, we've already frozen the remaining accounts. We should be able to recover at least some of what they stole. What about the other families they've conned? I asked. We're building cases for all of them. Your parents will be facing multiple charges across several states. They won't be able to hurt anyone else. As we left the hotel, I looked back at the table where my parents had sat, still processing the reality of what had just happened. The darkness they'd cast over my life was finally lifting, replaced by something that felt a lot like freedom. 6 months after my parents' arrest, I stood in front of the courthouse. adjusting my suit jacket one last time before heading inside. The trial had been a media sensation. Two respected community members exposed as longtime con artists who'd even stolen from their own children. Today was sentencing day. Michael met me at the courthouse steps, the twins holding each of his hands. At 8 years old, they were too young to fully understand what their grandparents had done, but old enough to sense the importance of today. Aunt Jess, Sophie ran to hug me, her brother Jake following close behind. Dad says after this we're all going for ice cream. I hugged them both tight, meeting Michael's eyes over their heads. We'd agreed to make this day about new beginnings, not endings. Inside the courtroom, familiar faces filled the benches. Aunt Sarah, looking stronger now that she'd started receiving her restitution payments, Uncle Pete and his wife, who'd lost their retirement savings to our parents' schemes. Even some of their older victims had come, people we tracked down during the investigation. When they brought our parents in, Mom's designer clothes had been replaced by a prison jumpsuit, Dad's confident swagger reduced to a shuffle. They didn't look at us. The judge's voice was firm as she delivered the sentence, 20 years for Dad, 18 for Mom, with no possibility of parole for at least 12 years. Full restitution was ordered to all victims. All assets were to be liquidated. Your Honor, Mom stood up suddenly. We have something to say to our children. The judge nodded and Mom turned to face us. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the mother I'd wished she was. But then she spoke. You've destroyed this family, she spat. When we get out, you'll have no parents. You're dead to us. I stood up, my voice clear and steady. No, Mom, we're not dead. We're finally alive. We're finally free. The gavel struck, and it was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around us, but Michael's PR team, hired by my company, kept them at bay. Ice cream time, Jake announced, breaking the heavy moment. We all laughed, the tension dissolving. Later that evening, after the twins were sugared up and taken home by their mother, Michael and I sat on my office balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. TechGrow's new youth financial literacy program launches next month, I told him, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of hope. We're partnering with 3 schools to start, teaching kids about money management and how to spot financial scams. Mom and Dad would hate that, Michael chuckled. Their own daughter, teaching people how to avoid cons like theirs. That's exactly why I'm doing it. I took a sip of wine. Something good has to come from all this. Something already has, Michael said softly. Look at us, Jess. You're running a successful company that helps people. The twins' college fund is restored. Aunt Sarah's getting her life back. We broke the cycle. My phone buzzed. A text from Agent Torres. They'd found 3 more victims of our parents' schemes, cases from 15 years ago. Did we want to help make it right? Another chance to fix their wrongs? Michael asked, reading over my shoulder. I nodded, already typing my response. It's not about them anymore. It's about who we choose to be. The sun had almost set now, the city lights beginning to twinkle on. From my office window, I could see the TechGrow Solutions sign, a reminder of everything I'd built despite them, or maybe in some strange way because of them. Their attempts to tear me down had only made me stronger. To new beginnings, Michael raised his glass. To freedom, I clinked my glass against his, and to never letting anyone burn our dreams again. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the city come alive with night lights. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and run my company. I'd continue helping people protect themselves from fraud. I'd love my niece and nephew, support my brother, and build connections with people who deserved trust. The past couldn't be changed, but the future, that was mine to write, 1 page at a time, without anyone trying to burn it all away. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you deserve. But if you're brave enough to stand up, strong enough to set boundaries, and wise enough to choose love over manipulation, you can build something better. Something real. That's what I did. That's what I'll keep doing. And that's a story worth telling.